everybody, and welcome back. Today, we thought we would start a new series for you guys. We're going to look at global motifs. These are motifs around the world that echo. Maybe they vary a little bit from site to site, but there's a central theme to each one of these motifs. And Phil, which ones are we looking at today?
Well, we're going to have a look at the stair-step motif, or the incised motif as we call it within the team. Some people call it the stair-step. It's got different chicana, well, we'll show you what the aspects of this motif are. Something we wanted to do. People know us of sharing the nubs and the bevel blocks, but there's many hallmarks that we've found now, isn't there, Andrew? So we're going to start today with the incised motifs, and we'll sort of run you through what we've found.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share screen here for you guys, and I'm going to pull up our folder. Now, like we talked about in the previous videos, we've always said, okay, we've got another hallmark to show you, and we didn't have them categorized and organized, so we've done a little bit of that today. So we've gotten a nice spread here. We've gotten architecture, we've got art, we've got textiles, so this is going to be multidisciplinary, so let you guys...
For people that don't know, we've designed what's called the Technological Alexandria. We've got a OneDrive with examples of the worldwide phenomena that we're known for, which is the nubs, and we'll give access to that to any researchers that find our nub in research interesting, which is what we're now doing with all the main hallmarks. Of course, we'll continue our nub work, won't we, Andrew?
Agreed.
But we're now going to move with the incised motif and give everybody the hallmark knowledge that we've been following for the last few years.
That's right. And you will notice when we look at these photos, you may notice a few of the other hallmarks like nubs in the photos. So
bevel blocks, polygonal stonework, so on and so forth. We'd be interested to hear your calls on what you and your teams call what we've sort of named ourselves, if there's a regional description for an incised motif or a stair-step header or a chicana from where you are, we'd love to hear exactly what you think these hallmarks are and how they're represented in your areas.
That's right, yeah. We have these kind of general terms, just to lump them all together, because we know by just looking at them here that there's a repeating pattern, and it's kind of disingenuous and misleading to use maybe one regional name, so we kind of give them our own little global names to make it a little bit more understandable. So I think we'll just go through in order here. We can stop at any point and do comparisons to other places, but we can start with Behistun, Iran, and this is a good starting point to bring up differences in headers. Now there's going to be headers that are above the openings where they will go up and down like a zigzag, and then other versions like this where they will recess. And this is when we say incised. Incising or notching, into the side of the cliff. So you'll see 1, 2, 3, these incisements, like they're cutting it into a vertical stair step into the side of the cliff.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, already you've got a comparative that you could use here where you've got loads of rock-cut cave systems like the Lycian rock-cut tombs in Turkey and so on and so forth that have a very similar header. These are Zoroastrian tombs, aren't they?
Right.
But for us, they're just simply not tombs. They're very intricate motifs and headers for maybe a cave system that was lived in pre-cataclysm.
Agreed. And like we said in the ancient mining episode, a lot of these caves really do mimic this all over the world, this same incising. And like we were talking about, I think I see some pinch holes in some areas maybe. Some of this
stuff. I mean, internally at the Ellora Caves, you've got a very similar stair-step header within the Ellora Caves in India as well. So we'll move across to India at some point.
Yeah, it'll start making sense, but there's different variations. One of them is the incising like this, and you guys have seen it on doorways a lot, and we're going to bring up some of those examples as well. All right, so that was Behistun. And then how about, let's bring up another example that's that's similar to the incising. How about, let's go over to Pumapunku and Tiwanaku, because I want to show the incising on a gate, for example. Same kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So we have this stair-stepping, vertical incising, recessing into the gate, and different ones have different amounts of steps, right? So this one, I believe there might be 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, right? The other ones had 3 steps. 3 seems to be what would you say, Phil? Standard. The standard is like,
it is kind of standard, isn't it? The 3.
The 3.
We'll show that in Zoroastrian examples.
That's right. Yeah.
Usually in the Shekinah or stair step. It can differ. We'll see examples later on in Egypt and at Petra where Qasir al-Farid, an inverted incised motif, it's variable on the amounts, but usually on the door headers, I agree, it's between 3 and 4.
And even
it's almost like a false door motif as well there.
That's right.
We see that as a worldwide motif as well, don't we?
We do. And you can see it's like a stair step itself along the edge, you know, like an inverted stair step, the bottom half of the Shekinah. And there's a great side-by-side I want to bring up while we're here. Like you said, it was a global spot. How about Egypt? Now the Jebel El Silsila quarry and those kind of false door and little shrines, some of them.
I just want to bring up the fact that it almost looks like something's been pressed into the stone and left an absolute geometrical perfect shape, whether it be a mountainside, whether it be, you know, like at Tiwanaku within a stone block itself, or you know, maybe the likes of Qasir al-Farid that we'll see later on.
Yeah, you guys are going to like that. So yeah,
you know, this idea, it's very, very, very much like it's pressed into the side of the mountain, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. We have single examples too, like just a single incisement. Again, that notching down the side though, like a stair step, and then it kind of does the same at the bottom, like a stair step.
Indeed.
And then while we're here, we might as well bring up the fact that there are full stair step. Only here they're called Shekinahs, right? You've heard this term before.
Yeah, the Shekinah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a full stair step motif, up and down. And you'll see...
You've almost got a small beveling in the middle as well, haven't you? Like
that's right. The beveled edge. So you have beveled edge blocks. Again, we're going to see a lot of these repeat and overlap. So you'll see other beveled block sites coming up that have the stair step motif again. And then let's see. Some pretty good examples. One here is broken, they put back together. And then also, the Akapana pyramid at Tiwanaku. How about that shape? In it of itself is a stair step, and then in the center there is a pool that is a Shekinah. Very interesting. You know, it's like
indeed.
Half and full.
I mean, you could have a couple of trains of thought with that. Is it a star viewing pool at the top of it? Is the Shekinah some sort of star alignment motif alongside the lozenge, which we'll do in another episode? But
yes,
these sort of star pools, plunge pools that we find on literally every single ancient site from Angkor Wat to Peru, you know, so Cambodia, sorry. So yeah, it could all be relative with different aspects of engineering, to be honest.
That's a great point. So next, let's go, we're still in Peru, near Peru. Let's go over to Lake Titicaca, because there's a good segue to be made here. So, on an island on Lake Titicaca, we have this temple of the moon, and the stair step here. This is the top half of a Shekinah, right? So here we're seeing them in the header form above the doorway. The doorway is itself has the recess, the incisement, the recessing, and then the stair step above it. And this is
I'm not sure how new these are or how ancient they are, dependent on whether they're representative of what we're seeing elsewhere, because in my opinion they're very similar to Petra.
Agreed.
In Jerusalem.
Yes.
Was this somebody that had travelled and seen and had made a representative of this sort of more Inca times rather than megalithic times? But it's a very, very ornate example of the incised motif, isn't it?
Yeah, they definitely are remembering. You know, this is obviously not as impressive as the rock cut versions, but still, this is a remembrance. This is a legacy
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Very good example. Okay, and since we're in the area, we'll stay in Peru. I want to bring up Napa Iglesias really quick, also called Napa Huaca. You guys seen this before in some of Brian Forrester's videos, I'm sure, and recently in Jimmy's Bright Insights video. How about this thing? This has
certainly got the incised motif to the left-hand side, and
definitely
as well on here, back to our old favourite, you've got 3 nubs.
That's right.
In its entirety.
Now we know the
You've got 2 in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
One at the top right-hand corner, but
everyone misses that one. Yeah, no one notices.
They do, yeah.
But that's right.
That's quite funny with the incised motif. It would have continued up on the centrepiece here.
Yeah.
And it was to the left and the right-hand side. So when this was more of in its entirety, we would have seen the incised motif pretty much all over it.
Agreed. It could have been a full Chicana maybe, right? You know, as it went up, it might have turned into a full Chicana. And,
absolutely.
And speaking of that, you know, you guys are more than welcome to look at more photos. We're going to try to go quick because we have so many of these, right? I'll show you a few more real quick. You know, you can see over on the right where more of it used to be, right? The 3 remaining bits.
You can see the nub slightly clearer of that as well to the top right-hand side.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, that's the spot where they dynamited it. So it was probably a pretty substantial stump here, but and then
absolutely, yeah.
A nice side angle just so you can see these. And the stair step, really sharp, crisp, smooth.
Again, you've got more or less like a double header sort of dual pattern, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll go over to Ollantaytambo next, where we'll see an exact same expression on a different object.
Yeah, this is fantastic, isn't it, Andrew?
Yeah.
When we came across this in our original researches and saw the nub, and then applied it to the incised motif, which now obviously is another worldwide hallmark, we can see the triple header aspect to it as well.
Exactly.
It's pretty much the standardized amount, isn't it?
Right.
So, same set of engineers.
Yeah, and it's internal and external. You have the outside step and the inner step. As above, so below, right?
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
And also at Ollantaytambo, up at the top, you guys know, the stair step.
Probably one of our favourite images, isn't it, this one? Because you've got standardised nubs that obviously we're now famed for in the community. But that's anyway, the incised motif that the young man is pointing to here, we've got some clearer photos of what I'm going to discuss, but it almost looks like a picture board to a mapping system or to what actually was going on with relative to all the hallmarks that we look at, the nubs, size motifs, and so on.
And the shadow, right? You can really see if there's shadow play going on, maybe with the nubs as well. The black and white photos really help to see that. Right, and here's that more detailed photo, like you were just saying. Really high resolution.
Kind of, if you zoom into it slightly, it almost looked like there was maybe a map or something underneath that. It almost looks like someone sandpapered it off, for want of a better word. You can see like a surface treatment to where there would have been, you know, some sort of carving across the entirety of the block. But again, you can see, excuse me, you can see the standardised nubs to the left-hand side. You can see the big base nubs like we find at, you know, Yangshan style size. To the top right of this monument, there's a massive nub, but again, this is the incised motifs, but you can see the shadow play, how thick this was over the top. It was meant, it was there for a reason. I think that reason's been taken away. We can't see the full aspect on here to what it ever was in the ancient world, but for sure it's the incised motif or stair-step motif, isn't it, Andrew?
Yeah, and it's a repeating vertical expression, like a zigzag, and we'll see that in petroglyphs coming up soon too. All right, so next, how about we jump over to Saudi Arabia? We have some good stuff here. How about
the Qasir Al Farid? I've done a video on this place, Andrew. I mean, it's spectacular in more ways than one, but with reference to the hallmark that we're on, it's almost like an inverted stair-step motif. It makes me think, or, you know, speculate that it looks like a set of stairs at one point.
Yeah.
When the mountain was in its entirety, that was its access point. That's how I looked at Petra and Qasir al-Frid when I first studied them. But for whatever reason, it does have the inverted stair-step motif.
Mm-hmm.
You know, almost like a Greco-Roman style column facade as well, which
True.
is very strange to find in Saudi Arabia, you know, but
yeah,
one thing that we find across the new road as we go across to India is the shikana or stair-step incised motif is very prevalent, isn't it, Andrew?
That's right. And like we're going to show here next, we're going to jump over to Petra, and at Petra we have both the what would you say, the negative, the lower half of the chicana in this, the descending pattern, right? And then you also have the ascending pattern, the upper half of the chicana.
Very similar to the Zoroastrian architecture, and as well,
that's right,
what we'll have a look at in Palmyra. Very, very similar, isn't it?
Agreed. And there's lots of these, a whole bunch.
Yeah, it seemed to be maybe like we say about nub engineers. Petra is almost like an incised motif rich area, isn't it?
Agreed.
A hallmark with the reverse as in, and the normal incised.
Right here side by side, maybe with a nub. But that's it's kind of blown out here, right? But there would be the other half of it maybe with, I have another, let me see if I can find another good one. We had one that was, I believe it's this one. Here you are. Side by side, the negative lower half and then the top half, the ascending pattern.
I mean, it's almost like you had, I don't know, teacher and student maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but...
Yeah, right.
Like, you know, one person showing, one person executing and so on, but to get both the inverted and, you know, the stood-up stair-step motif, it expresses maybe two sets of engineers. Was it just the pattern? We'd be interested to see and hear your points of view out there once we've shown you the worldwide aspect of the incised motif.
Agreed. Maybe there's different purposes for the buildings, and these different versions of the motifs express their purposes. So
yeah, agree. I agree. I mean, the erosion line at the bottom third of it is almost looks as if there was water running through its entirety. Like that. Very strange, isn't it, for
Agreed.
Saudi Arabian desert?
Yeah, right. A lot of these are like that. They almost look scarred, you know.
Agreed. And
of course, yeah, you guys are free to look at a lot of these. One of them I really like here, like I said, scarred, looks very scarred. You know, doesn't really look like water erosion. That looks something more...
Or almost like it wasn't finished at the bottom. It has to be erosion. So was the water passing through Petra at this point in time? But the one thing that stayed is up the top at the north end of it, the incised motif, the stair-step motif, which is so prevalent around Petra.
Agreed.
As we've studied. So, yeah.
And these are the freestanding version. They are separated from the bedrock now, and this is going to segue nicely into our next area, where we have more of these freestanding versions.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Oh, and one more while we're here. Those JINN blocks that we were talking about in one of the previous episodes, they have some of these as well, heavily eroded or...
Now, would it, like we've surmised on this, is that very heavy weathering, or is it from an earlier period?
Fair point.
You know, was it copied later on culturally, or which areas of Petra were the first? Because we see so many different hallmarks there and geometric marvels that are unexplained. I mean, begs the point, Nabatean farmers, did they carry this hallmark all around the world? Not for me. So it puts the builders of Petra maybe a lot further back than written history suggests.
I would have to agree with that. All right. Okay, and like we were saying with the freestanding versions, we're going to jump over to Iran and the areas around Iran, because there are some really famous ones here. Now, here's a good one.
Probably when you're talking incised motifs, the main one that you come up against are the Zoroastrian examples within Iraq, aren't they?
Yeah.
You get very ornate examples. They're all over all the temples. Zoroastrian. We'll get to these later, but some of the crowns are all incised motifs within, you know, and it's beautiful examples in Iraq. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and like one of our colleagues on Twitter, Santo Bartez, I believe, mentioned that this is one of the only examples where we have the little miniature false door motif inside of a stair-step motif.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of a unique one here. And you know, Persepolis, very famous, very impressive site with some very big blocks as well.
Absolutely.
Huge foundations.
It almost surrounds the entire site. It gives you the impression that the incised motif or the Chicana stair-step motif, whatever now, we'll just call it the incised motif from now on.
Sure.
You know, if we're wrong and you've got a better term, then you give us a shout and we'll be happy to apply that.
Agreed,
to our knowledge. But yeah, it is what it is.
And this
but it would have covered this, and you can see the megalithic stonework and almost the blown out holes, the polygonal aspect.
Yeah. Right. So who knows what some of that damage is and the discoloration and all that. Some of this stuff is polygonal fitment, and we'll see other examples where there's filler stones. That's another motif we'll get to in another episode.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll keep going here. More examples, like you said, goes all the way around. Another one you like, and I like as well, Palmyra in Syria. Another one of
Probably one of my favourite ancient sites before it was destroyed. It was such a fantastic place. I mean, the columns in themselves are something else, aren't they, Andrew?
Agreed.
But right at the top, you've got, again, the incised motif or the stair-step motif. That would have spanned the entirety of the top of Palmyra. Not the only motif, of course, that is at Palmyra. You've got a good example, Andrew, of the nubs coming up that were at Palmyra. So
that's right.
Both sets of engineers were at Palmyra. There's no shadow of a doubt about that, because we've got examples at the top here on the lintel of the nubs protruding, very different to other ones that we see, but actually they are nubs.
Agreed.
So they were at Palmyra. So
have another photo. You can see them right along the top there, how they're kind of uneven, clustered. Yeah, see a lot of the damage holes here, right? Like you see at Pergamon previous episode. Check out damage holes if you're curious about those. And then, like you and I were saying before,
sometimes now we're going to beg the question, are some of these damage holes are up close and personal, the actual pinch holes, which is again another big up to yourself and the team as well for finding many examples with the pinch holes.
Good point, right? Yeah, some of it can get kind of confusing. You're fine. It gets confusing. I understand. Yeah, some of these holes, you see them in pairs. I see a lot of them in pairs, but maybe not always. Maybe that's not always the case. But like you were saying, Phil, and I was saying before that we started recording, that not only do we have that expression, we have this pretty cool expression. You see, it's like an inverted half Chicana, the bottom half, and it's part of the column, not just a fixture plugged in like a socket.
It's almost one block, isn't it? That's been cast out of one block.
Yeah,
very, very, very good work.
And each one,
people don't give that credit or look at that. Did something sit on top of it? Was it fire? Was it a lighting system for Palmyra? But nonetheless, an inverted Chicana stair step on a block cast out of a column. So what fantastic engineering that is. I think anyone in the ancient world can agree with that. Absolutely.
The fluting is great, very ornate. Yeah. So we have another example of that, I believe. Yeah, well, we'll go back to that other dark one too. You can see them over here. Some of them, they break off, and when they break off, you can see the remnant stays on. Like, that is the shape that it was. So it is the same mineralogy as the rest of that column drum segment.
Absolutely.
I think I have one more here. There you go. See them? And see, this one's kind of eroded down here on the right. Sorry, but it is, again, the same mineralogy, one piece. And they're not, the whole column, but still, it's very impressive that they did it this way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And other pieces where other things could have been socketed in, right? You see the difference. It would leave a square hole if it popped out. So.
Very, very impressive ancient site, to be honest with you. What a shame what happened to it.
It was, wasn't it, Phil? There you go. That is the current state of it. Yeah. Yep.
So we're very lucky to be cataloguing photos
Exactly.
of what was one of the better ancient sites in the world, but nonetheless.
Okay, next we're going to go over to the walls of Nineveh in Iraq. Very famous biblical site. And what do we see? The stair-step motif. And these go all over these walls. So this is just a small section, but these go for miles, and you'll see it all the way down.
I think it's important to remember as well that some of these sites have been badly damaged and rebuilt. So sometimes cargo cults have passed down. I mean, this example is due to war, but cargo cults have passed down sometimes these motifs. So it's important to remember what is actually ancient and what isn't. In this case, the foreground does hold an ancient background, and it is the incised motif. So you can tell the difference between the back and the front.
Absolutely.
Here, but,
yeah. Original context versus maybe a confused context. If you see a legacy version or a later version, it might not be the same, not the same symbolism, or at least, you know, not as remembered as the original. So
yeah.
And nearby in Iran, we have Tak-e-Bostan, and this is a cool little shrine. It's cut into the bedrock, but also incorporates blocks. And at the top again, you see the stair-step motif, the freestanding version again.
Almost very ornate, isn't it, this example? You've got
Agreed.
Very ornate work, and to the right-hand side above the archway, maybe that's been taken away or unfinished, like we've discussed before.
Agreed. Yep.
Very similar to examples like Petra, where you see some very ornate examples and others that almost seem unfinished, or maybe they were older, or maybe they were newer, you know, or as war damage happened. So, you know, but very ornate examples nonetheless.
Great observation. Yeah, even on the outsides here, all the filigree and the motifs. And then this one on the right reminds me of Bar Caves, the dimensions of this arch. The shape of it reminds me of the internals. Yeah, and you see more in Turkey and around this area where they're taller like this. But the squat version, it's really got the proportions of the internals of Bar Caves. So we've got another photo real quick to show you. Not the best photos. There's more. There's better ones on the internet. We try to grab a whole bunch today of lots of different things, and we're jumping around, I know. And then let's see. How about, since we were just there, it's something a little bit different, but nearby. This is CHECKLEY in Turkey, and this is a cool little structure. It's a little shrine. Aha!
See, can't you? Again, the incised motif to the left-hand side, almost working its way around. Almost got a Peruvian feel to it, almost to the Anubis style, hasn't it?
Yeah. And you see these little indentions in the sides here, and then maybe even a pinch hole in the middle. Very curious. And then, of course, all the other pitting on this whole thing, right? I mean, is it monolithic? It looks monolithic. Looks like...
We get that false door aspect as well in Egypt, don't we?
Yep.
So
and then the incising on that.
I think before we started recording, we went across to Egypt and had a look, didn't we, to see the examples of incised motifs that we could find there.
Yep.
And you've almost got, well, everyone can talk about the King's Gallery and so on and so forth, but are there any examples there, Andrew, of a standardised incised motif?
Yeah.
We'll show the audience that there actually is, won't we?
That's a good one. Yeah, we'll jump over to Egypt next. So, yes, like we see with the freestanding versions, and then also versions cut in. Let's go to Egypt, and how about Great Pyramid? How about the Queen's Chamber niche?
Yeah.
You got very famous again, but what is it? Looks very much in dimensions like the Persepolis freestanding stair-step motifs, incised motifs.
Absolutely.
And here it is incised, right? It's been cut in. Very interesting.
Yeah, indeed.
Got a few good photos here. One by our fellow colleague Larry, AIP, Sage Silent on Instagram. Great photo.
In between an incised motif.
Yeah.
You know.
And then makes you wonder, you know, what was the original purpose? And then some people have speculated on the dimensions, what they mean and everything. You know, there is some interesting maybe mathematical relations and, you know, comparisons between these different angles, and maybe there's some symbolism there, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely some mathematical principles encoded.
Didn't we find one outside as well in Egypt? I can't remember the site. Was it Abu Sir that we found it?
That's right. We'll go to that one next. I believe that's about all the good photos. There's a few others, some blurry oones online, but this is probably one of the best ones. And then
it makes me think about the Kurgan as well.
Yeah,
the Kurgan is fashioned exactly the same.
Yeah,
so.
And like the Grand Gallery as well, and other internals, like how about the Red Pyramid? They have these, you see these in the diagrams. Yeah. So megalithic marvels, by the way.
The Red Pyramid version is almost more ornate, isn't it? It's
almost... very, 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 refined. More steps, right? Yeah. Megalithic Marvels, by the way, another colleague. Find him on Instagram and Twitter.
Shout out to them for all the
great photos,
brilliant images that we take from them. Fantastic.
Yes, and like you said, outside this one. This is the one from your Pinterest, and by the way, shout out to your Pinterest, Phil. You've got a ton from there. We pulled a lot from there today, and a lot of them have the descriptions. Some of them, if they don't have the descriptions, we'll try to find them. Like today,
anyone that wants to go on there, it's got all the motifs on there. You're all welcome to the catalogue. It's on Ancient Alternative View, so you're welcome to go and have access to any of the images that are on there. It's a basic who's who of all the ancient hallmarks.
Yeah.
As you can see here, there's more steps to this. It's almost got the Petra feel to it, Qasir al-Farid feel to it, hasn't it?
It does. It really does.
With more steps.
Yeah. and maybe some other processing lines. You can see the difference, the pitting versus the very smooth.
Yeah, was it a surface treatment? Was it pressed onto it? Was the stone softened? Which doesn't look as if it was chiseled on that way, does it? But,
no. Color changes.
Maybe a surface treatment.
Maybe a surface treatment, right. I got one more photo here. Give you some context. So yeah, is it a real set of stairs? I'm not sure, right? I think they're more of a design motif here, like those headers at Petra in Saudi Arabia. So you have one on the right, and then this one on the left. So maybe they could have been stairs. I think I've seen some other examples at some theaters, some Greek theaters, but I couldn't find the site for you today. I'll try to find that for you in the future, but there might be more examples.
Well, if you find any examples, guys, out there of incised motifs, we're going to be giving you like a basis on our worldwide phenomena of the hallmarks of these. We'd love you to send us your photos of the incised motifs that you have found, and we can add them to the catalogue. We're going to be extending the technological Alexandria to include all the hallmarks. Andrew and I have spoken for a long time now. Of course, we don't earn any money from our channels.
Nope.
But when we've completed the catalogue, if anyone wants it, and more than welcome to have the nub style. You can have 5 gig and research it for free.
And more.
We've been thinking for a long time about going to the nub site and so on and so forth. So if anyone did want to have access to those sites and get photos, we would never ask for money for our channels. That is not what we're about at all. But if you want us to go and see a site, document the nubs for you and do live streams there, we'll give access to the other hallmark motif catalogues to anybody for free that wants to pledge
full credit,
a little bit of money for us to do that. But then, that's the way that we are. We're not in this for money for our channels at all. It's more of, if any of the phenomena want exploring more, you're more than welcome to help us.
Join the team. So. Join the team, please.
Yeah, indeed.
So here we're at Kinkaway's Mastaba, still nearby here on the Giza Plateau. A feature of the Mastaba that not many people focus on. I'm not really sure what I'm looking at myself, but it's curious and maybe related. I'm not sure what else this could have been. It seems like something was pressed again into the side of the Mastaba.
But again, it's almost like an inverted chicana, isn't it?
Right
into the side of it.
Yeah.
Got
another photo here. How about this? People will say there's blocks that are missing that socketed in. If so, what was going on here? Was this a set of stairs? And if it was a set of stairs, then what does that say about the way they interlocked it? They chose a chicana shape or a stair-step shape to interlock very, very practical. And
again, it's probably one of the more ornate forms, an actual staircase made from the Shekinah motif.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Very different way of using the motif, but
right.
It's there nonetheless.
Different ways of using the motif. That's a great way to put it. Just like with the nubs, different ways to use the nubs. That's the kind of...
standardized, triangular, circular, square, like we've discussed.
Yeah, that's the kind of mindset you want to be in. Just, don't think you have the one answer. There's usually more than one answer.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
All right, so where will we go next?
I'd like to talk about the Indian examples that we've had a look at, because I'll tell you for why. Some of the most ornate work, and I'm the biggest advocate for Indian temples, but within the ornate work that we speak of on Twitter and on YouTube channels, is like we find in India. The Shekinah that we're about to show you now, I mean, I use the phrase, it's not copper, chisel, sticks and stones that did this. It certainly isn't. It's a very high form of, well, I'd love to say technology. If anyone knows any better how that was done in the ancient world, I'd love to hear it. But nonetheless, within, I think we saw it, didn't we, on Praveen's work originally?
That's right.
The Shekinah shape where he went up to it with a pen. Sort of like sparked our interest, didn't it, onto the worldwide aspect of the Shekinah. So
yeah, here you go.
Here we're seeing the full Shekinah, and it looks almost like a nut, as if you would tighten something into it, and the Shekinah at the end would be the locking nut, which was what I said to you initially when we were researching these.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, fascinating example of a full Shekinah.
Yeah, an octagon, and then, the Shekinah inside, like a socket. Very curious. Very impressive.
Like a locking nut, for want of a better word, almost like you could open and shut a door with it, or, tighten whatever it was. I know it's a block, so if any of you have got any thoughts on what that could have been, then you're more than welcome to let us know.
The non-flight bird, that's another hallmark we'll get to in the future.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely a global hallmark. Yeah.
Pay attention to the birds. That's very important. Pay attention to the birds.
Absolutely. The lozenge as well, that'll be on our list.
Another one, yes. And then not just art motifs and things, the actual footprints of these temples are Shekinah shaped.
Shekinah shaped. The base itself is Shekinah stair step.
So it's
itself in shape,
Mm-hmm.
We've noticed that with quite a few foundations, like we said at the beginning, where you've got the step pyramid at Tiwanaku at the top of it, the star viewing pool that we mentioned.
Yep.
Very much similar shape at the top of it, almost like star thought, for want of a better word, but nonetheless grounded and based with the incised motif Shekinah shape.
And then what does that say about other pyramids, and then like in India, the step wells, right? The same form repeats. Other things that repeat. This is a great part of a wall, the Wall of India, Great Wall of India.
Warangal, isn't it?
Warangal. You see the bevel blocks again, these bevel lines, polygonal, and then you have different course arrangements, right? These weird undulating course arrangements. And then at the top, you have something that's almost like a stair step, right? The same execution, just simplified. So it
doesn't go up 3 steps, almost similar to the Iraq or Zoroastrian examples, if you or Palmyra. But it's almost like a cultural attempt at that. But the Shekinah is very prevalent in India, so maybe a different era of builder.
Could be the top, maybe different.
Maybe this isn't an example of the incised motif at the top. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that, but it does give that stepped progression. So maybe one of the engineers of this motif. Yeah,
I mean, it's the same maybe function if it's for defensive purposes, right? For shooting arrows behind and all that. It's serving the same purpose. You do have the bevels and some other things that overlap into the Zoroastrian and Assyrian areas. So maybe there's a little bit of a remembering, but maybe this is just like if it is the Shekinah shape again, the stair step, it's maybe a chunky defensive version. Okay, and while we're in India, before we go any further, I want to bring this one up. This one's really cool. It's another rock-cut facade, and this one.
Again, it's almost Petra-esque, isn't it? You've got
very much so.
Incised motif to the top left-hand corner, almost like that Greco-Roman style fill column down the left-hand side. But The incised motif carries on the door header, doesn't it? You've almost got like a double step there
double
as well.
step.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Double step, zigzags almost. And
it's interesting at the top. It almost looks very Indian, like the tops of the Indian temples that we see, like the Buddhishwara.
Yeah, Lingaraja. Lingaraja.
How many different sort of cultures were together at this time to actually get this worldwide hallmark to where we are now, Andrew?
That's right.
It's almost at the top as well, got a lozenge above the square.
I was going to bring it up. That's going to be one of our upcoming videos. This repeating diamond, the diamond. Or it's a diamond, or when you see it, you know, repeating, it'll be like a grid pattern. So keep an eye out for these.
Shout out to Dave Hannahan on our team, who is the lozenge specialist. I'd like to think I'm getting there, but he's the master.
And we'll consult.
Follows the star alignment hallmark from there. If you'd like to see any more on that, Andrew and I will be doing a whole episode dedicated to the worldwide phenomenon that is the lozenge. Or starting sort of towards the Blombus caves at 80,000 years ago. You can see some of that on my Gravity work if you'd like to go and have a watch. But again, the incised motif here, absolutely beautiful, isn't it, Andrew?
Yeah.
And again, so prominent like we've seen at Palmyra and in Iraq and Zoroastrian examples and so on.
Yeah, kind of has that unfinished, partially finished, and then very finished, you know, juxtaposition.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like it's pressed directly into the side of the mountain.
Yeah. And then when you see this style, since we brought it up and we've kind of skipped over it, I want to go back to the Royal Kurgan of Kerch. We mentioned this. This is a great one to talk about. Aha!
I mean, there's so much going on here.
Agreed.
I know a hallmark that you and I absolutely adore, which is the bevel blocks and the nubs. Now, these blocks almost morph from a bevel block, which we've talked about on prior videos, into the nub. It's like almost a template to the surface treatments that we see on all the bevel block and nub buildings, and lo and behold, at the end of it, look at what we've got.
That's right. Yep, you can see it. They taper from bevels into nubs. It goes smooth at the back wall. You have a corbelled arch like in Egypt, and then also the stair-step motif incised.
We call those puffy bevel blocks, don't we? It's almost like it's got a puffy aspect to the stone in the middle of it, and then you get the more flat bevel blocks, don't you, like we see on the Wailing Wall of Jerusalem, for argument.
Yeah, and also in Greco-Roman territories, you know, the Greco stuff is pretty precise, but still present. Yeah, more like, say, these lower courses where it's not as prominent.
The incised motif towards the end where your cursor's pointing now, very much a lot of steps going on to that. So almost follows the Egyptian theme as well, doesn't it?
Agreed, yeah. So, you know, like I said, these repeat in different orientations and configurations. Some more of these tholos tombs have some of this corbelling like this, of course, as well.
Absolutely. It's like a template, isn't it, for all different hallmarks of Kurgan and Kerch. I'd like to point out that some of the base steps actually have very fine nubs on as well.
Yes.
In photos we can see again there on my Pinterest account for anyone to look at.
Yes. And then like you said about footprints, we were talking in India, that's a good segue. We will jump over to Ethiopia. Another famous site, Graham Hancock's talked about this. He's been there. How about the Church of St. George? Now this is cruciform. It's the simplest version of a chicana. And then the foundations, however, are the full chicana. You see the extra steps, and we'll show more. But
almost like a snake motif running next to it with a lozenge right through the middle, isn't it?
Agreed. And then more cutting up here, this big cut. Yeah, very impressive bedrock cutting in subterranean chambers for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's go to a better picture here. This one. See? You can see the steps. It's just like India. Yeah, you know, the Chicana foundation. And look at all the holes in the bedrock, right? Where do they go? All these hills are honeycomb.
I've seen lingam shaped the same way in India as well. At the bottom they've got sort of like a stand that they sit on that's exactly the same, Chicana based like that.
Agreed. Statues as well. A lot of figurative statues do this. Yeah.
It's important to point out as well that there are stair-step nubs at Lalibela churches in Ethiopia.
Yeah, right.
You've got the, well, it depends on whether you'd like to call them nubs on the doorways, but again, the doorways have got that two-step approach into the doorway.
Yeah.
And the square kind of nubs that you see around them, if you think that the formation was made the same, then we have to categorise them as some kind of nub. Not your standardised that you would find at the Athens Acropolis, or, you know, maybe in Ollantay, Tambo, Saxe, or Sacha-Sechuan, should I say.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah, and there's other examples that, you know, you can look in the folder. They just stick out of the side of the cliff without a window, or, you know, kind of next to a window. So it's not, they're not always framing the window, but they have the protrusions that are, you know, in the area.
Indeed, yeah.
So that's just a cool example, and that cruciform, that's a good thing to segue over. We'll go jump back to Turkey for a second. Another famous one, the Midas Gate. Cruciform again. You look real close, this pattern, repeating cruciform. And then outside of that, it kind of forms a chicana.
I think above as well on the header, we've looked at this before, you've got the lozenge motif that goes all the way across the top.
Agreed.
And, you know, there's a multitude of hallmarks here, isn't there?
Yeah, right. Maybe some pinch holes, definitely some subterranean elements. Other angles show caverns, different cutouts. Maybe this is a inverted standardized.
And again, almost looks like it's been pushed directly into the mountain. I mean, look how intricate and ornate the pattern is.
The same way
on the back of it. Absolutely phenomenal. Almost like a mini chicana within itself.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have the recessing at the door. Very interesting. I mean, it's almost like the same culture, but or it's at least the same kind of execution, but you know, a little bit regionally different, right? So, very cool example, and a lot of bedrock caves and stuff around that site. So we have just a few more to show site-wise, and then we were going to jump over to all of the textiles and the art and some other examples of how this motif transitions from architecture to other elements of the society.
Absolutely.
So,
and in the four corners of the world, it does that as well, doesn't it?
Agreed. And some other, you know, notching above, and that can take different shapes. They look rounded in some examples and squared off in other examples. Nubs as well, just like you say, like we saw a minute ago in Ethiopia. Around these openings, you'll have post-style nubs, the square nubs. So,
indeed, yeah.
Cool spot there. Lots more of those if you want to look into Dara and other areas of Turkey, the Lycian stuff, basically. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all of our sites that I wanted to talk about. Oh, one more. How about, actually two more. How about legacy examples? So we're going to talk about rebuilding, right? Here's a perfect example. Jerusalem again. This is the Damascus Gate. At the bottom, you see the bevel blocks.
Notice on the tops as well. They're very different incised motif. In places, you've got the bevel blocks at the bottom. You can tell are very ancient, and then at the top, maybe things have been replaced, you see. So
I think so.
You have to be careful again on what is legacy or cargo called built. But like we see on some of the Crusader forts, Andrew, the bases are bevel block, very flat bevel blocks. And we get that here as well. So
yeah,
when was it repurposed, and you know, what was it before? And because it's definitely been changed, hasn't it?
I mean, it's a drastic change here. Yeah. So, but just something to think about, right? Because maybe there was an original configuration, and they are trying to repeat it, or you know, carry on the legacy somehow. And then another, if we're going to talk about that, let's go back to Peru, because there's a great example that you found on your Pinterest. Let's go back to Peru. Chan Chan. This site's pretty cool. There you go.
You've got like an inverted stair-step motif, and again, you've got to put this. It really looks like Aburuash, doesn't it? The example that we found now.
Right.
They're very, very similarly and inverted, and you've almost got them at the bottom as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So as a
very eroded.
Motif, so,
they're there, but they're very eroded, right? And over here as well. I think I have another picture of this.
The Chan Chan has also got the non-flight bird, which we'll look at later on down the line as a hallmark.
And so this is like this is mud, you know, adobe, you know, it's rammed earth, packed. Not as impressive, obviously. Well, mostly obviously, but more than likely later legacy.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, this is them trying to copy and carry on the symbolism. Here's some more interesting examples. See, they've incorporated fish.
My bird at the bottom, and then incorporated
and then there's your bird.
The incised motif. We've actually got fish now. So again, we see, and we'll do the snake motif around the world. A lot of cultures, civilizations back to megalithic times use the animal carvings. We see them on the Chulpa towers, for argument's sake, which
That's right.
has the polygonal stonework, the nubs, and also the animal carvings like you're seeing in the Chan Chan examples here.
That's right. Yeah. So very, very long lasting. You know, they've carried this on for a long time. And
indeed, to look at some of the ceramics and maybe
sure, yeah,
some of the other examples we found are very intriguing. Of course,
I love this
when
one.
we were looking in Iraq and so on, and you see Palmyra at the top. Look at the top here. It's an identical incised motif, isn't
yes,
it, that you see there?
Yeah.
Only culturally, this is not from Iraq. You know, so we have to now look at this as being a worldwide phenomenon like the nubs and the bevel blocks. And again, we said this during the video, we are going to be doing almost like a different video for each motif. And as you can see here, it passes down into the pottery and also into things that have been made culturally and regionally. Agreed,
yeah. Yeah, and maybe here, like Persepolis, we have a version with a miniature doorway in it. How about that?
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Very ornate as well, very small and refined. Absolutely beautiful example.
And this is all Peruvian stuff, obviously. The full jacanas. Yeah. You know, some of these look like palettes, like Egyptian palettes, maybe.
I thought of them as keys. So you put them in, turn them, and I know that's crazy, but it is what it is.
Yeah. They look like some kind of amulets, you know, maybe rope was lashed.
You notice the circular hallmark in the middle, which is also a different hallmark that we can look at back to 80,000 years, but
that is
maybe
true.
This one isn't involved in that, but nonetheless, circular hallmark in the middle, what we class as lozenge shapes towards the bottom. You've got the 6 star as well, Star of David, if you like, but whether any of that is carried on or its decoration, we don't know. We don't know if the decoration was added later, do we?
That's a good point. So, you could say maybe this is the flower of life. You could say maybe this is nubs or represents nubs, other texturings and different things that, you know. But it's a very interesting object for sure.
Shikana nonetheless, or incised motif.
And here you go again. The header style, like you would see in the old world.
Yeah.
And then smaller ones down here. See this?
Absolutely.
And that one there. Very interesting.
And just to prove it's a worldwide aspect, Andrew, I think we've got an aspect where we jump now from South American examples. We'll go across to China and show everyone where this has been passed on to probably one of the best finds that you've had. I really enjoyed you finding this aspect here.
Yeah, these, you might not, you say, what is this? I can't tell what this is. This just looks like a rag. This is the oldest pair of pants. Right? The oldest pair of pants in the world came from China. If you see what looks like some kind of lozenge-shaped pattern across the lower knees here, and then some zigzagging, and then I'm going to jump over to Google real quick so we can find some more photos. I think this one will do it for us. Yes. And then we zoom in a little closer here. And you see up along the top, the stair-step motif again. Aha. So, let me zoom in just a little bit more for you guys on your phones. You should be watching on high resolution, by the way. Turn your quality all the way up. Very faintly, the transition from the tan to the brown, you see the motif going across about the crotch line, right? But it's there. They are the repeating stair-step motif. And this, you could say, is you know, above and below. It's the inverted and it's the normal stair step. Curious.
Fantastic find, to be fair.
You know, and is this the original fabric? It makes you wonder how many times have these pants been sewn back together? You know, what materials originally? Was it a flag maybe that they turned into pants? Who knows, right? So just really cool that they found this. And yeah, it's from China.
China, and carrying the incised motif.
Yeah, and others. And like the zigzag, we'll bring that up in a minute, because the zigzag it goes way back into the petroglyphs, and I think it's related. And again, you can use it for stitching, other kind of art decoration, multi-purpose. All right, here. So let's bring up some other textiles real quick. Peruvian example. Again, like a zigzag, stair step, right? Inverted and regular. Depends on how you look at it. But I mean, come on, it's the exact same thing. And then I have a cool example here from Mount Nebo Church of Moses. This is near Jerusalem. Full Chicana. This was part of their mosaic floor. This site's been destroyed and rebuilt about 100 times. So, but a fragment remains, right? Shows that it's making its rounds.
And you've got to, it's encased in a lozenge.
Right.
So it says it all, doesn't it?
And there's other bits of that and motifs and other bits of mosaic. This isn't the only one, but we can get into that later date. Another good one from Turkey, mosaic floor. This was a pretty famous one recently. And if you look, if I can zoom in, I hope I can. Look where they are. You see that pattern? That is the exact same pattern that was on that pair of pants. And then you can see there are swastikas in with lozenges, spirals, a lot going on this floor, a lot.
But it does incorporate 2 or 3 of the hallmarks. Mm-hmm. The Shekinah in its entirety, it's the inverted and the full, isn't it? It's the Shekinah in its entirety again. Mm-hmm.
Different colors, like varying colors. And then
beautiful, to be honest.
It's crazy how it buckled, the floor buckled like that. And then another example very similar to this. Let's go to Egypt. Haha, this is the bottom of a sarcophagus, the part that, it broke off from the rest of the sarcophagus. Chicanas all over. Yeah. The same style as that mosaic floor again. Very cool. Full Chicana. And we got a few more here. How about we have some slabs and steely. Let's look at some of these. These are cool. Now here we're getting back into that Assyrian, Zoroastrian, and yeah. So you have above, and again, this one has the doorway, the miniature false door inside each one. So we've only seen...
Notice the bird at the top as well.
Birds at the top. You have the guys holding the cones and some cups, riding lions. You have these little false windows, little representations of windows. We see that in some other, the Darius tombs. There's a fire tower there called Kaaba Yi-Zartosht. It's covered in these. So the art is reflecting the actual architecture. Lozenges going across underneath this repeating pattern. And there's a few of these. This one's pretty cool. Lozenge again right away. Maybe some kind of representation of nubs or planets perhaps. And then at the top, your stair step again. Yeah, same imagery, same iconography. And then a few others. I like this one. This one is from your Pinterest, by the way, Phil. You see the flanking stair steps, and then it kind of rainbows around. That's an interesting execution. You don't see that one.
Depiction of an archway with the more,
Yeah, and then above it's kind of like maybe a different version, like you say, a later Peoples or a variation of the style. Just triangles, just pointy triangles. The top two. Interesting.
Indeed.
Down at the bottom as well. Yeah. And like I said, there's a few of these. You can hunt around for them. What's really cool are the crowns in this area, by the way. How about this? Look at the crowns these guys were wearing.
The quality of the crowns is similar to Nahal Mishmar, isn't it? It's almost fantastical. And with the incised motif being the crown, it's for the most important people from the most important palaces. So, you've got to look at whether Zoroastrian, we've looked at the hallmark passive power, which is a circular hallmark, which we'll look at again at a later date. we look at the Zoroastrian mountainside where we can see that pass on of power.
That's right.
And also technological aspects, and to see the crowns of the incised motifs. Putting it all together, isn't it, Andrew, is a worldwide phenomenon. And following these engineers as we do with the nubs now with the incised motifs.
Yeah, this is Kabul in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah.
Not right before, but before the recent events. Luckily, this site has been cleared out and saved, and they've fled this area. But all these pieces, they were once housed here. Interesting. Yeah, you know this is old cuneiform. Very
Great.
cool. Very cool old artifacts and statues. Buddhas, right? Genies. Very
Small
cool.
versions of the incised motif along with the inverted incised motif on the crowns. Beautiful work.
Some of that stuff's maybe later again, but a legacy of remembrance.
His bookcase doesn't quite look as nice as yours though, Andrew. Very nice background. Done very well.
Yeah, I got my statue, and I've got a few Buddhas. I've got the fat Buddha, and I've also got the meditating Buddha. So I've got them both covered. And then we've got other examples. We can go on for hours. Furniture, even, right? This was a great one you found.
Pompeii.
Pompeii. It's a bed. It's a Roman bed, allegedly, purportedly.
Yeah.
How about that?
With the incised motif around it. So.
Yeah. How about that? I mean, it's a little...
Again, culturally passed down through the Roman Empire.
Might be a little uncomfortable. You might might not want to roll over. But yeah, the same symbolism, right? Everybody's using it. Very cool. And that's pretty much all we had for you guys today. There's a couple other things we wanted to mention. The petroglyphs, they seem to echo. Now, you have the zigzags, but then you also have these squared off versions. What's that about? You know, and then other, like, is that a grid? Like a lozenge grid?
Yeah, or the lozenge, definitely, yeah.
Maybe, and there's another one over there on the right. Maybe it represents a net or a fence. Who knows? Here's a few others, right? This is it's just a Rosetta Stone of petroglyphs. There's all kinds of things going on here. But
indeed, embedded hallmarks as well.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, you know, this is Amazonian and pre-Cataclysm, pre-Younger Dryas, so if it's showing the hallmark
there's your birds
on a storyboard pre-Cataclysm, then one would have to think that a lot of these buildings and hallmarks came from before Younger Dryas.
I think so. I think so.
You know, it's goes without saying, the evidence in stone speaks for itself to me. But
I
there we
think
go.
so. It even goes as late as here's one from Poland, I believe. This is one Dr. Charles Koss showed us this one. This site has some older stone foundations and parts, but it looks mostly rebuilt. But somebody remembered, right? Somebody remembered this motif. Very cool. Well, guys, that's pretty much all we had for you today. There's lots more examples that we didn't show you. It would just take days to sort through the catalog to find them and probably another hour to go through them. But I think you're getting the idea. Hopefully you guys are seeing that there's not just one answer here, and they don't just have one purpose. It seems like, again, like with the nubs, it's almost like a Swiss Army knife tool. They could use this motif for lots of different purposes to different ends. You know, even here's one I really wanted to show at the end here. You know where this is? This is Nazca, Peru, the Nazca lines.
Yeah.
And look at what they're doing
Very
with
important as well, isn't it, Andrew, on so many different levels.
Yeah.
The geometrics, the incisement, what it could have been. I have got to put it out there that I think it's for star alignment purposes. I think it's astrological.
Here, absolutely, right? You see the lines, different reference points, different concentric circles. Then you have the outer perimeter here. You see more stepping, like that's the full Chicana shape. The middle is the cruciform. Different reference points.
I think where we've surmised as well that some of the amphitheatre nubs in its entirety, looking from above, you could almost see like a clocking system. Well, in this instance, it's almost like a universe system you're looking at here, where you can actually look at different star segments, clusters. Was it some sort of key to that?
Agreed. Yeah, very old system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that is pretty much it for today. We have a few shout-outs here at the end. Phil, would you like to mention some people on Twitter, maybe?
Yeah, Twitter's where we do a lot of our trench work, and there's been so many people that have been excellent along the way with us, and I've got to give a shout out to our team that we work with on Twitter. Thank you very much to all of you. You know who you are, and thanks for the hard work that you do. It's been a pleasure to have a couple of new members to the team. Justin, thanks very much for coming across. Great to have Guy back from his exams, and we've got some work with Guy coming up shortly. We've actually recorded an episode with him. He's got phenomenal find to show everyone. But we've recorded episode 1. We need him to start his YouTube channel, so big up to Guy, and we look forward to showing you his findings. Thanks to Dave Hanneman for all his hard work with me and putting up with me, and we're back at 35,000 years studying the gravity, Denivision, Aurignacian, Neanderthal migration patterns, which I'll continue on my own episode. So thanks very much again to Andrew for doing the incised motifs on the new worldwide phenomenon that we're going to call the hallmarks, and take you on a journey with us on what we do day to day with our team, and basically catalogue all the hallmarks so that you can make your own decisions on what you think when we've shown you the worldwide aspect of them. Isn't that right, Andrew?
Yeah, you can decide for yourselves which stories and which mythology you want to plug into this evidence.
Which scripture you want to apply to the hallmarks. We don't have to fit our narrative into anything. Our evidence is written in stone, fabric, pottery, culture, subterranean levels, mountainsides, and from the base to the ceiling of every ancient building in the world.
You just have to know what to look for.
Thank you very much indeed for watching. Andrew and I, again, we look forward to seeing you again soon. Is there anyone you wanted to thank on Twitter, Andrew?
A few guys. Santo Bartez, man, you have been doing some great work lately. We hope to get you on the team soon. You've got the eyes to see. You've been making great posts. I've had a few guys give me messages and images, and I really appreciate all you guys giving me your images and letting me use them and share them. I'm sure I'll give you all credit as soon as I get time to make those videos.
The temple owners as well, Andrew, the doctors and people from the temples in India.
Yes.
Pardon me, from the work that we've done on Indian temples, which, you know, are some of my favourite in the world. Of course, should be anyone's, the most ornate that we can find.
Yes.
And we're getting some very good feedback on Twitter. If any of you want to engage with us on a day-to-day basis, because bear in mind our channel is down to research. We can't just post videos without doing the research, which does take time. But if you want to ask us any questions about the hallmarks or any of our other videos that we've posted on YouTube, you can catch us at Twitter in the team. Any one of us will come and speak to you. Andrew's at Ancient History Criticisms, myself, Ancient Alternative View, and you quite easily can find us. The same motifs for our videos here are on Twitter, so feel free to give us a shout.
Yep.
And thank you very much for watching us.
Thank you, guys, and if you want any links, they'll be below, or just give us a shout out on Twitter. We'll give our handles in the description. Thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you next time.